Hello everyone. In today's episode, we will finally get around to building the steel mill, start up production at the end, and also start planning the construction layout that could act as a repeatable blueprint to use throughout the Republic. Most of our time will be spent with planning that layout, but there are a couple smaller goals that also get done, like paving the road leading to the steel mill, as well as most of the streets in the town. With domestic steel production right on the horizon, let's not waste any more time. So, as my last act in the last episode, I unpaused construction on the steel mill. The roads leading up to it are all finished, so there shouldn't be any more delays. During my test games, I did notice that I forgot to send fuel to the farm fire station. So that was the first thing that had to be remedied. And since the necessary roads are all paved and ready to go, we can alter the bus route going to it, and redirect them to the steel mill's bus stop. I also made sure to give the fire station a priority at the bus stop. That will be filled first, and only send workers to the steel mill if fire safety is assured. To prepare for the eventual paving of this long stretch, I will build the side road now, so I will remember to upgrade it as soon as I see it again, once the snow melts. I only want to pave this highway once it's spring. Mud roads don't do well during winter, but are an acceptable temporary solution during the warmer seasons. I want to start moving coal and iron to the storages as soon as they are built, so I will enable the notification option on them, so I will get a message once they are built. And might as well do the same with the steel mill itself. To keep working on the streets in town, I'll designate a couple segments for paving. Since unemployment is still fairly low, no reason not to build this apartment block now. While we're here, I was reminded to place a monument at the entrance of the housing complex. As it turns out, a small mural will fit perfectly. Ever since we moved the power cables underground, we need to be more careful. They carry less electricity now, and the 3 substations we have now are close to their limit. Just in case, I will build a 4th one. Only need to find a suitable place for it. It would be better if we started expanding to the west, so right next to the football field should be perfect. Thankfully, I did leave one extra connection open on the transformer, so it's easy to hook it up. We will need to go under one of the other cables, so I will disable proximity snapping for a second, while I duck under it. Not the most elegant solution, but that's the whole reason to hide them underground. Either way, with the new transformer built next to the steel mill, we could transfer the farmer's substation to that one. Maybe even the border outposts too. That would give us 2 whole new power outlets we could play with. Finally, this is the release of the new truck that has a snowplow variant, and it's the second best road cleaner in the vanilla game. I will sell every single one of the current stable of trucks, and replace them with the new one. 43 versus 23 kilometers per hour. Almost twice as fast as the old models. Time to start thinking about that repeatable construction yard. First, we need a nice big plot of land to start planning the layout. I doubt we will actually build the prototype itself, so it will be just a bunch of ghost images that we can copy and paste wherever we need. This big flat area west of town should work perfectly. We just need to make sure we have a flat surface to work on. Just be glad I could fast forward here, And you don't have to sit through 2 bulldozers struggling with this sizable piece of land. That should do just fine. First things first, we need a place to store gravel. I want to have the concrete and asphalt facilities connected to it, so I will have to use the bigger aggregate storage. That one has 4 outlets instead of just 1. Next up, the concrete plant. And since we are supplying gravel from an outside storage, might as well do the same with cement. Having a bigger buffer should ensure a more continuous pace of building. Now that I think about it, I forgot to include a rail drop-off point for cement. Good thing the inlets on this silo is so high up, should make connecting to it much easier. I will periodically include labels for each building, so it will be easier to tick them off the list. I will do the same with asphalt. First, I'll feed gravel to it from the central storage. The reason for making that connection at that angle is that I want to include a loading station in this centralized complex. The other material needed to make asphalt is bitumen. Again, a bigger buffer should mean we can pick up the product without having to wait for a resupply, like that time we had those trucks going in circles in front of the old asphalt plant. Let's not forget about the truck loading station. We will need a place to import bitumen in bulk, and for that, a train station is the way to go. In case we don't need one of these train drop-off stations, we can simply delete them before they are built, whenever we copy this layout. Yes, I did notice the typo by the way. Originally, I wanted to route the train tracks towards the truck loading station, but in the end, that's where the warehouse will go. Of course, we need a high volume solution to moving gravel to the location, and as usual, the solution is trains. The first aggregate storage for the steel mill is complete. I will quickly set up the import line for it, and I'll be right back. Okay then, back to work. Of course we'll need road connections for fire safety, and to allow the vehicles in the construction offices to reach their work sites. No construction yard is complete if we cannot store the actual building materials, so an open storage is a must. Since we are trying to future-proof this layout, I will go with the bigger storage, which conveniently comes with a rail connection. We will also need power of course, and we have a lot of convenient little nooks we could hide it in. Next up, a drop-off point for workers, who will operate the concrete and asphalt facilities. Thankfully I managed to place them relatively close to each other, so it should be easy to just insert it into a segment of the already planned roads. And both of them are in range, even on dirt roads. We're good. This looks like a nice place for the warehouse. It will need a bit of rearrangement for the roads, but that's a-okay with me. Plus, as I said, We will have to place the tracks for the bitumen drop-off to the right, instead of the left, so that will increase the overall footprint a bit. The coal storage for the steel mill is done. Time for another quick detour. Let's see how we can deal with the rail situation. To ensure optimal operation, it would be best if we used trains to bring the raw materials here, instead of trucks. But first, it would be a good idea to know the final position of every building, so I'll quickly designate 2 construction offices. Lining them up along the main road going into the yard should be the ideal place for them. And it also allows us to build more in case we want to expand the capabilities of this setup. I will mirror the second one, just for symmetry. Almost forgot to include a fuel station. Not every vehicle who enters this construction yard will work for a local facility, so might as well make sure they can go for a drink if they need. I'm not sure it's strictly necessary, but I'll include a distribution office too. Most of the stuff should be taken care of by trains, but there might be situations where a depot could come in handy. Even if it turns out to be an unnecessary addition, it is one of those buildings that are easily removable, as it is placed at the edge. That's a pretty big footprint we have to deal with. It's already almost as big as the town itself. We have the warehouse and the bitumen drop-off stations to the left, so we need at least 2 tracks here. Of course, getting them to cooperate with the roads will require some finagling. They are simply too close together. It will take me a little bit to realize this. Yay, we have a winner. Similar situation here. We'll just have to move the storage back a bit, and we're home free. Good thing I pre-built these side roads. Reminded me to pave the highway. We still have a lot to do in the town, so I'll quickly designate a couple more streets for paving. It can be a bit hard to decide. I want to ensure I don't accidentally block access to anything. The foundations are done for the steel mill, and most of what's needed for the next phase has already been delivered. At this point I wasn't sure I could finish it before the end, but don't worry, we will start making steel before the outrow. Here, we had a bit of a deadlock situation. The paver was assigned to one of the segments, while all of the dumpers are parked in all the other ones, waiting for either workers or said paver to turn up. For now, I disabled that part of the road, so the paver can be reassigned to one of the active ones. And since all the open hull trucks are seemingly busy somewhere else, I'll just allow it to drive itself to the farm highway. It will take a while, but we have a lot of time. I was hoping it would go to the nearest segment, but alas, it's going for the furthest one. While we were busy planning the construction yard, the last apartment block has been built. Unemployment is still quite low, so I think there's still some room left to expand. Here, I wasn't sure why it cannot reach the hospital. But then I realized that I have a piece of road upgrading that used to be a direct path between the two, so I didn't worry too much about it. We are now suffering from the lack of buses that work for the construction offices. We have a lot of small projects going on, and the ones that have the resources do not receive workers, and the ones that have no resources do not get prioritized because they are far away. Time to pause a couple things. The track layers will get in each other's ways from time to time, but there are no signals on the rails yet, so they will sort themselves out. Instead of waiting for stuff to happen, I'll just keep working on the construction setup. The buildings themselves are more or less where they should be. We only really need to start worrying about the rail tracks. Now, we only really need 150 meters as the maximum length for station platforms, so technically, we could make an 8-lane rail yard for trains to queue in. 4 lanes to go in, 4 lanes to leave. I will spend quite a bit of time trying to make it work, but I'm not sure I will carry through with it. If these drop-off points would require a particularly fast turnover of trains, I'd have to build an extensive queuing setup. But I doubt we will really need it. I will plan it out for now, but as I said, I doubt I will go with 8 lanes, as it's just overkill. So yeah. I will mess about with the tracks for a little bit, but don't get too attached to what I will end up with. By the way, as it turns out, the gravel drop-off station is already pretty much 150 meters long. Just FYI. Yeah. Those 8 tracks seem a bit of an overkill to me. I'll make a feeble attempt at trying to connect them all up to a regular 2-way track, but I'll quickly give up on it. Yeah. For stations that would see a train at most every couple hours, this is a bit much. I will definitely have to trim some of these branches. But the overall construction setup, that I am happy with. All the roads I left unpaused are now complete, so I will restart construction on the ones I did pause. Now, this is something I wanted to do for a long time, but only ever remembered it during editing. I will go around the place, and create a sparse forest around the town. Not going to make it a dense pine jungle, just a single click with the tree brush. Especially wanted to do this around the bridge, as it is a bit lonely in the middle of that empty field. Surrounding it with trees should give it some character. I specifically only make single clicks, so I don't create a dense forest. Once I start doing that, I will never be able to stop. And while we're at it, let's surround the steel mill too. Sure, in real life it would be a huge fire hazard, but this isn't real life, so might as well. Now, these patches of trees I planted around the farm, they are a bit bigger than I'd like. I prefer to have them line the fields, so I will remove the majority of these blobs, and only leave the ones that are close to the roads. A viewer did correct my mistake, when I voiced my reasoning behind using these trees around the farms. They aren't really leftovers of the old forests that were here before the farm, but are purposefully planted as windbreakers. So having them hug the fields should be more sensible. Now, these streets. I really want to get them over with. The biggest issue is that I still need to allow people to walk, and if I started paving all of them, they'd be stuck. A liberal use of dirt footpaths, however, should help with that. Once the upgrades are complete, they can be deleted without remorse, since they are free to begin with. I am easily distracted when it comes to planting greenery. I started by upgrading roads, and now I'm placing bushes. At this point, I failed to notice that our money reserves are getting dangerously low. We will hit zero fairly soon, and I won't notice anything wrong for quite a while. The fact that I wasn't bombarded by alert messages and the general happiness and health will not drop even a little bit. I think I can get away with it. And we are out of money. The only reason I will get wise is because I will need to buy some buses later. And everything just keeps chugging along as if nothing major happened. In the long term, I'm sure we would have massive problems, especially once we ran out of fuel or crude oil for the power plant. But for now, we are doing just fine. We are still selling clothes quite regularly, so that helps a bit. I think those 3 beech trees are a bit of an overkill, so I will get rid of them. While we wait, let me give you some insight to what I have to deal with when it comes to using this text-to-speech engine. Most of the time, it is a wonderful thing, and it does whatever I need it to do, but there are a couple words it struggles with. For example, you know bitumen? I have to alter the way I write that word. If I use the correct spelling, it will say bitumen. I leave it to your imagination what 2 extra letters I had to add after the T in that word, to make it sound right. I also have to pay close attention to using commas. Sometimes I have to insert them into places where they are not grammatically correct, but I have to use them to slow down the delivery of the sentence. Sometimes I write down a whole paragraph worth of text, and then go through it all over again, adding commas as mid-sentence breaks. But as a benefit, it did make me appreciate the Oxford comma way more. I know it's a meme, but it does help with making poly sound more natural when listing things. Besides that, there are a few small phrases that just don't come out right. For example, when I'm talking about the arrangement of buildings, I like to use the word layout. Sounds like a certain princess from Star Wars, isn't it? For some reason, it completely drops the T at the end. Layout. I cannot even begin to think how spell it differently, to somehow end up with the correct pronunciation. I bet some of you still don't know which word I'm talking about. Anyways, while I was rambling, the town streets are mostly finished. There are a few left, but they are not going to block anything vital while upgrading, so I call it mission complete. Here, the pedestrians are all using the footpaths, and vehicles have a few options to go around. So I do not worry if these are not immediately built. Since the town is practically complete in terms of roads, I can now start planning for upgrading the industrial highway too. To pave in front of the bus station, we will need to include a temporary connection around the town. We still managed to only buy food this year 4 times. Once I get around to increasing the throughput of the food distribution line, we should be able to reduce it to 0. At this point I finally realized that we have been running on fumes, in terms of money this whole time. The fact that we didn't lose any happiness or health, and we even gained a couple extra citizens, makes me think that what we built up to this point can be self-sustaining. Should I stop paying attention again? To prepare for the imminent completion of the steel mill, I will buy 8 more microbuses, and start moving workers over. This is definitely a temporary setup. I will replace them with proper buses eventually, but for now, these will do. And since we have the line list open, let's rename the new ones. There we go. Finally. We can start cutting back on the cost of buildings quite a bit. It will be a slow start, and I will keep importing it if our reserves drop below a certain level, but the fact that we can make some of the steel we use at home is a huge boost to the economy. Here, I will keep wondering why nobody is going to the steel mill. I did assign it to the bus stop while it was under construction, but it seems the game removes those assignments once the building is complete, and have to be reassigned. There we go. I will still prioritize the fire station over the steel mill, but that's just for my peace of mind. The majority of workers will still end up in the factory. And we have homemade steel in stock. Time to set up a line that will distribute it to where it's needed. I think a good oldie file will do just fine. So we pick up at the steel mill, then make a drop at the open storage, Then move on to the rail construction office with the leftovers, and end at the border to sell whatever remains. What's best is that if the truck drops everything it has at the first stop, it will not go to the other drop-off points empty-handed. Instead, it will go straight back to the steel mill. Let's follow our first steel delivery. While we're here, might as well get rid of this temporary connection. $6.8 tons. Not bad. Not bad at all. As I said, the truck unloaded everything it had, and instead of moving on to the rail office, it goes straight back to the steel mill. Clever. I really wanted to finish building the steel mill in this episode, so in the end, the last part of the video was a bit of a waiting game, with not much happening. In the next episode, I will try to finish planning the construction yard, and maybe even find a suitable place for the first one. After it's complete, I might consider removing parts of the border outposts that are no longer useful. Or I might keep it as is. We'll see. Regardless, the next big project is finishing either the iron or the coal side of steel production. We will find out in the next one. I hope you liked the video. If you did, dropping a like and subscribing to the channel just might motivate me to make more. Until then, see you later.